And we are back. So I am selecting an image in Photoshop. I'm sorry. I'm selecting an image in Lightroom Classic. Going up to Photo, Edit in. We did this today. I am going to... So my version has something a little bit different. I'm just going to hit Render using Lightroom. All the time we want to be using the edits that we have in Lightroom. Just a moment, there it is. So I have my one image, right? I'm going to go back to Lightroom and I will select, sure it's taking its sweet time here. I'm going to select a black and white version of that. Doesn't seem to be doing it, but hang on one sec. There we go. Okay, so I am going to go back and open that one up in Adobe. We are going to render using Lightroom. Okay, so now we have our images open that we are going to use for potentially for the diptych. Next, I'm going to create my document, new. I'm going to use inches. I want my document to be horizontal like we discussed, so the width would be the longest side. 8.5, 300 RGB. This is going to be white. Adobe RGB, beautiful, and we're going to hit create. So we are back where we were before. Looks like a piece of paper, right? I'm going to come over to my first image, and I am going to show you another way that you can create a different size of your image to copy and paste really quickly. If you remember, if we go up to image and go down to image size, here I am going to choose a height of, if my height of my paper is 8.5, right? I would like at least about an inch on the top and the bottom. So 8.5 minus 2 would be 6.5. So let's try that. You will notice that when I did that, and I do not have the resample selected, it increased my resolution. So let's go ahead and cancel that baby. Go back to image and image size. And I am going to resample, and I'm going to, again, change that to 6.5. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but if you'll notice that there's a lock here, right? You want to keep that locked, and you want to hit resample when you're changing the resolution, because otherwise we don't need a higher resolution like it went to, right? 300 is perfect for our printing, so, and you can just leave it on automatic for now. We don't really need to talk about that. But this is again under image and image size, and I am changing this image size. Notice it's 6.5 times 4.33. I'm going to hit OK. It just went smaller just because of the change. I'm going to do Command and plus just to make it larger in the screen. Come back to my second picture. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go up to image, image size, resample selected. I'm going to select the 18.24, which is the height, and I'm going to change that to 6.5. You'll notice the other dimension went to 4.333 as well. So this is great because these pictures are straight out of the camera. I have not cropped them, so it's easier to ensure that they're going to be the exact same size. Obviously, if you crop things, they may be different dimensions, so keep that in mind. I'm going to go back to my first one, and what I want y'all to watch, just so you can start again seeing some of the layers for people who aren't as familiar with that. I'm going to go to adjustments. Remember when I talked about the window Making sure history, layers, and adjustments are open. Adjustments are here, layers are here. So I'm going to go to adjustments. And what I'm going to try to work with a little bit is some selective color. So you'll see a couple different adjustments that you can do. A pretty common one is the black and white, which I already showed you in class today. Another one is levels, which I'll talk a little bit more about. That helps with exposure. Same with curves. It helps with contrast and exposure. The other elements, sometimes students use brightness contrast. You can, it's a little more, I want to say, heavy-handed. We tend to use levels and curves for a little more of a subtle adjustment, I guess you could say, but you're welcome to play with that and see. Vibrance was similar to vibrance that we have used in Lightroom. Same with hue saturation, color balance, photo filter, all these things you can play a little bit with. I don't really use the photo filter too much, but let me just show you really quickly. I'm going to select it. You will see what happened. This is kind of like, it's like how we used to use filters on our lenses, right? You could have warmer lenses, cooler lenses, etc., and then you have all these colors. So it's in a way a little bit like just using your white balance, right? When you did in Lightroom, the warming and cooling, obviously you don't have quite as much control, and then you can choose these other colors. Honestly, I don't use that too much, but one thing I do want you to notice is when you open up an adjustment layer, first thing, it automatically creates a new layer for me, right? We talked about this. And when it creates a new layer, it also creates an automatic layer mask, which I will get to. But it also, some of the adjustment layers open up something called the property box. And within that properties, you have different controls that you can do. As you notice, I could change the filter. It changes the image, right? I can also change the density, all those good things, right? If I thought that looked good. Really, and again, I'm sorry, I'm working on my laptop, so I have a little less space than you guys do working on the larger computers. But let's say I did indeed like that. Kind of looks a little bit, I don't know, either going into the golden hour of evening, or maybe there's a little bit of haze or smoke going on. So again, we're coming over to the layers. I can turn that layer on and off with the eyeball. Looking over at our toolbar on the left, right? I want you to come down to where we have our color swatches, or it's foreground and background. Right now I have it black and white. I can select any color, right? I can select whether the foreground or the background. I can choose it to be a certain color. Just for fun, I will do red. I believe I showed you this already, but just a quick redo. Now, whoops. I have to go back there. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong. So I was on the photo filter. I don't know why I keep saying it that way, guys. On the photo filter one, and it wasn't giving me the color that I selected. So I fixed that. So again, I can choose that. I can choose any color I want. I can move up and down. If I don't want reds, if I want blues, greens, etc., oranges. So this I kind of like because it matches that a bit. So I will select it. Maybe you can see, you can change the luminance or how bright it is, all these good things. So you have a whole lot of choice, but for now, I'm going to select that. Again, it shows up as my foreground color down here. Now that means I can paint or draw or different things with that color. When I select the paintbrush tool, you will see brush and you will see pencil and other things. For our purposes, we're pretty much just going to be using the brush. when I have selected that brush, when I have selected certain tools, different elements will show up at the top. Right now, after selecting the brush tool, you will see that there's a number here. It says 4280, right? 4,280. When I click on that, this brings up how I can change the size of my paintbrush, right? And the hardness of my brush. This is just like the brush that you use in Lightroom for masking, okay? So to this direction, it's very soft. All the way up here, it's going to have a straighter edge. So let me just show you if I did that. That may be too big to show. I mean, I literally just made, I guess you could say that's a pretend sun, right? So that actually showed up on my background. We will talk about this, but if you're going to do something like that, I would suggest that you create a duplicate of your background so that you are not doing anything directly on your original photograph, right? But as you know, we can always do Command Z or come to our history and go back a step. Either one works. I also want to come back up here to my brush. I just wanted to show you, right? That was as the 100% hardness. Now I'm going to do 0% hardness. And so just to give you an idea, right? Again, I'm going to do Command Z or come back. And I want to come back down to my colors. And I can either select the color again to choose black, but an easier path is to literally just push the letter D. And when I do that, you'll notice it turned to black. Now, you will also see there's a little arrow, and I can switch whether white is the 4 color or black is the 4 color. You can also push the letter X, and it does the same thing. Now, just what I want to start talking to you about in this video is coming back over to our layers, selecting my adjustment layer that I added, which was a photo filter, right? Again, this white piece of paper, this mask looks like a white piece of paper, right? So you can think of it as, this is literally a piece of paper that has that photo filter effect, right? And it is covering my entire image. So if I choose my brush and I come over to my piece of paper that is the photo filter, I can then start brushing over it and getting rid of that effect wherever I am brushing. If you can see that. You will also notice here on my mask the areas that I brushed over. So right now, instead, I don't really like the way my photo filter looks. So I am going to come to the eyeball and turn that off. I'm not going to use it at all. So I am going to take it and I'm going to drag it to the trash. Trash can is down here at the bottom. You'll notice at the bottom of your layers panel, trash can, a plus sign, a folder, a half moon, and looks like a white square with a circle in it that you can create a layer. So just be aware that that's what's going on down here. So I'm coming back here. I am coming back to adjustments, and I think that I will try perhaps some hue saturation. Hue is color, right? If you'll watch my, down here at the bottom, watch my trees. right? I'm changing the colors, which is something I told you guys I had done for these pictures, right? Saturation is the intensity. I can change that as well. Lightness is obviously lightness. So I like that. So much like the before and after that you have on your Lightroom, I can come back to layers and I can turn that off. So let me make that a little smaller so you can see. Watch down here in my bamboo/trees. That's without that hue saturation. That is with. Without, with. So that's a pretty dramatic difference. So I wanted to come over here or I wanted to do a slightly different kind of adjustment layer so you could see a little more obviously when we are changing or using the mask. So if you remember, anytime I do an adjustment layer like I just did, it creates a new layer. I can turn it on and off. I don't have to keep it. It also adds automatically this mask, which is that white piece of paper. So basically, my white piece of paper of hue saturation is covering my entire picture. Now you can't see it as much up here, obviously, right? But you can definitely see it down in the trees, in the bamboo and trees. So coming back over to my left, I still have my brush tool selected. I am going to, select the letter D and then X, so black is on top, right? If I did X, it would switch to white. If I did X again, it switches to black. I'm going to Command plus so I can come in a little closer to show you guys. And I'm going to make a decision about my brush. I want it to be somewhere in between. It doesn't have to be super soft. It doesn't have to be super hard. Make it a little bit smaller. And I just want to show you, I can brush away some of the intensity that I just created. And part of the reason I want to show you that is because it shows up over here to the right, on that mask. Where it's black, I basically, you can think of it as poking holes in the paper that is hue saturation, right? Now, if I wanted to return the mask to the parts that I've just taken away, come back over here and I notice I am going to press the letter X. White is now the foreground. I can come right back to where I was and paint it back in. Notice it disappears over here. So that's just the very beginnings of masking and what you can do with it. So you were able to play with that a bit for your assignment now, definitely, and anything moving forward. And that is where I'm going to end it for video 1.